Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Sharon Let's Live with Marlene Dillon Empowerment Specialist. Oh my goodness. So I am really enjoying doing this podcast. I had no idea that doing this podcast would cause me to experience so much personal growth. But there's something about making a commitment to myself, to you who are listening, and to the universe that I want to share something empowering every single day. So in order to do that, I'm learning something every single day so that I have something to share every single day. And it's just really amazing to me how much growth I'm doing in such a short amount of time. And I really hope that you will continue on this journey with me, because I don't like growing by myself. I like having people learn as I learn. It's just, I'm not the kind of person who likes to leave people behind. I like being able to bring people along with me. So, so this Let's Try July. Oh, I did it right this time. Let's Try July challenge has been awesome because I have been allowing myself to be very, vulnerable, two, very authentic in what I'm experiencing and in how I communicate. Because it's so tempting to have to show up the same way all the time and to embody the persona that I'm expecting people will want from me. But I've decided that I'm done with that. And I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be authentically me. For the sake of keeping my podcast under a certain time, like the goal is to keep them under 25 minutes, 20 if I'm really being good. I do go back through and I edit. But that's, so my Obama pauses aren't as long as they really are in real life, but that's only for the sake of continuity. I want the communication to flow and for you to get the message and be able to get on with your day. So, so I shortened those a bit, which I wasn't planning to do, but then I realized this could be 30 minutes or I could knock it down to 22. So yeah. Anyway, so yesterday I did the podcast episode about quacks and self-love, talking about how if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, that it's probably a duck. Learning how to actually pay attention to our red flags and explaining why we don't. So if you haven't had a chance to check out that episode, I personally think that was my best podcast ever, but that's me. I'm biased. But today I wanted to talk about, what I've learned about, spirituality. And don't cringe and grimace. It's not going to be a talk about being saved or something like that. What I've learned is that a lot of the ways that we talk about spirituality, whether it's in church or elsewhere, that there's so much, it's so hard for us as humans to separate ourselves from the experience of what we view as God or a higher power or the universe or all there is or whatever term you prefer to use. And I realized that it's we don't mean to do it, but we tend to attach so many human emotions to what God is or source is, and how damaging that is for us, because our beliefs about God, or I'm just going to say God or source or whatever, and not have to do this whole list every time. So what I've learned over time is that our experiences, our interpersonal experiences, growing up and in our environment, and what we've been taught in religious experiences, whether it's in church or that religious grandmother who always said this about God or that about God, or the person who was horribly, terribly mean, but they never missed a church every Sunday. So we developed a certain belief about church people, whatever that is that a lot of that impacts what we view. It impacts our view of, of source or God or whatever. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So if you're not like like if you don't believe in God, that's totally fine. I support you in your belief. This particular episode might not be that helpful to you. Welcome you to continue to listen. And if you're not feeling it, trust me, this is like the only episode that I plan on talking about this, but this is what I was led to talk about today. So this is what I've learned over time. Our experience of who God is typically parallel to our experience of our parents or an equivalent significant figure in our lives. So if we have a belief that, that God is like a genie and we could just say like, here I come with my 3 wishes, and everything works out for us, that there's probably some sort of parallel in our lives that's how things work. I get what I want, I ask for it, I get it, and it's not like a big deal. If we have an experience of you got to beg for it, and you don't get what you ask for, and that sort of thing, it probably has a parallel with our experience in our, with our parents or whoever raised us, etc. That, we ask for things and there's like a long wait before we get it, or there's a no every time, or we got more no's than yeses, etc. And it's not just about like getting things. It shows up in other ways. Like if we felt safe, or if we felt protected, if we felt loved, if we felt like someone cared, all of those things play out in the way that we view that higher power. The absence, the presence, the support, the provision, all of that stuff tends to parallel our experience in our home environment or some other significant environment. Because even though our beliefs are usually pretty much established between 0 and 7, there are other moments that are so significant that they also add to our belief system. For example, maybe you believed in love up until you turned 16 and your girlfriend or boyfriend broke your heart. And then you turned into a different version of a person when it comes to how you view love. And that happened clearly after 7 years old. But it was such a significant thing that it was like a major belief shift. So I had an experience that came to me like when I first woke up this morning. I had this memory of being in grammar school, and a friend of mine, a classmate, his grandmother used to come and be like the room parent, and she would help out and whatever way the teacher needed support. Like if she needed someone to pass out the papers, she would pass out papers. If she needed, someone to watch the class so she could quickly run to the hallway for a second, or run to the office to make copies or whatever. Like she was that person. And she was the person who helped me when I didn't understand my work. So, as I've mentioned probably in every episode, I have ADHD. I didn't know that as a child. And I struggled in school, but no one knew it because my grades were really good. But I didn't understand what was going on most days. And when this lady was there, she was, my teacher would have her help me with my work. And it was such a beautiful thing for me because she was so sweet and she was so kind and she was so patient with me. And she would explain stuff like when my teacher was kind of like exacerbated, like, oh, okay, well, can you help her with this? Cause I got to get back to teaching the class, like that type of thing. She would just sit with me for as long as I needed, and she would help me understand what I couldn't understand. And I had forgotten about this until the memory came back to me this morning. And what I realized is that my experience with this woman who was just so kind and so supportive and so, you can do this, and so you're not inconveniencing me. You don't have to keep thanking me. I'm happy to help you. Because she was so all of those things, I was able to learn at the pace that I needed to learn. I was able to figure it out. Like, it wasn't like she was giving me answers. She was showing me how to do things, and then, giving me the time it took for me to be able to process it and then be able to do it myself. And what I recognized is her presence could have had a major impact on my perception of how life works and how God works and how people will treat me and that sort of thing. But she was a visitor and she wasn't there every day. So my larger experience was of asking for help and being told no, or being told you should have caught on with everybody else, or you should have understood, why weren't you paying attention in class, or if you weren't daydreaming and doodling, you would have understood, or I have my own homework to do, figure it out like everybody else. If I didn't have that experience, I think that I could have had a totally different perception of how God works. As a kid, when anyone received help, there were always people who were like, how come she gets to have help? We had to do it by ourselves. Not realizing that they are able to process the information in a way that I am not. So I actually need help just to be able to function at the level that they were. But to them, it seemed like I'm getting help with my work and that it was unfair. So I internalized that belief that it's unfair to receive help. Everybody else has to do it on their own. I need to do it on my own. So that belief didn't just stick with doing classwork. It became a deeper belief because that's what happens when, I was in second grade or first. And what happens with those beliefs is that we develop umbrella beliefs. It's not specific to one thing. It becomes like the rule for everything. So it's not just, it's unfair for me to get help with my homework. It's unfair to get help. Everybody else has to do it on their own. You need to do it on your own. So that was the message that I internalized. And that message translated even into my spiritual beliefs, that it's unfair for me to ask God for help when other people are just figuring it out on their own. Wow, right? So doing this journaling exercise actually helped me out. If you hear me flipping pages, doing this journaling exercise helped me to recognize all these different beliefs that I've been holding since childhood that are working against me because there's a part of me that knows that when I pray and ask for guidance, or when I meditate and ask for guidance, or when I sit still and tune in with myself and listen for higher insight, that I receive it and great things happen as a result of it. But I wouldn't do it consistently because deep within my mind, I hold the belief that receiving help is unfair because other people aren't receiving help. So I went through and I started looking at the characteristics of this friend's grandmother and recognizing that if I look at his grandmother as a representative of source or God, or how, or the personality, if you could say, the personality of God, that I could shift the way that I view what's acceptable in regards to how I'm supported by the universe. So I made out this list, and I'll just share it with you. Why not? So I put, she was patient, she was kind, and she helped me. She took her time to explain things to me until I understood. She was nice to me and a companion. I had no friends. She didn't make me feel stupid or slow. She felt like she was grateful to be able to help, like helping me was something I didn't even have to thank her for. And trying to read that without tearing up. But what I realized looking at it that way, and then saying like, well, if that's how I can view God, then, then I can look at it and say, source or God is patient with me. And the deeper meaning behind that is it's not just about the being patient. It's about the other messages that I've picked up in church, picked up from other religious people around me, picked up from, random Facebook posts or memes or whatever, that there's this idea that God is frustrated with us and why can't you figure it out? And, we're going through the same thing over and over again because God is just like, good God, when will you ever get it? God said good God. But, and realizing like, that's kind of stupid. The idea that the concept of God being impatient or jealous or all of these different things that are human attributes, it's dumb to me because those are human attributes. Like, why would God need to be jealous? Why would God need to be impatient? Why would God be hurt by our behavior? I'm just saying, like, all of these kinds of things are human attributes that are based on our ability to be surprised. Our ability to not know what's going to happen. Like, we're impatient because we don't know when the thing is going to happen. Like if you're waiting on somebody, it's the fear and the frustration that causes impatience. If you're waiting on somebody and you're like, they were supposed to be here 15 minutes ago, that irritation is due to what's going to happen because we're now 15 minutes behind. But God doesn't have those fears because God is all knowing, right? Or at least that's what we say. The impatience of, I don't know when they're going to get here, and now I'm on edge because I don't know when they'll be here. But if God is all knowing, God doesn't have that experience. So why would God ever need to be impatient? Why would God need to be jealous? Because jealousy, like there's some sort of implication that you are at a loss in order to be jealous. But if you are all, own all, can have all at a, like, why would you need to be jealous? Like, all of these are like human emotions that we apply to God. And then we have this image of God, like God is the angry, jealous God, and, all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, like I was talking to a friend and she was really upset about, like that she wasn't keeping up with some type of spiritual practice. And she felt so much guilt and shame about it, like that she was disappointing God. And I was just like, how do you disappoint God? How do you disappoint the one that already knows before you even made the commitment, already knew what you were going to do? There's no disappointment there. You can't disappoint someone, or, quote unquote, someone who already knows what's going to happen. There's no disappointing there. So yes, so for today's Let's Try July challenge, I am challenging you to take a peek at how you're showing up in your expectations how you're showing up in life, in your expectations of God, if you believe in God and of source, in how you expect the universe to support you, in how you expect people to show up for you, in how you expect people to see you. Do you have some past stuff that looks the same? Do you see a parallel between the way you expect people to be and what you've experienced of others? And can you be willing to let that go? To decide, those people treated me that way, but I'm going to start looking for evidence of other people who treat me differently. Let's try. Okay, today is day 8 of my Let's Try July challenge. This is Marlene Dillon Empowerment Specialist, and I pray that you receive something as I did as I shared. Have an amazing whatever time of day it is for you. Blessings. To learn more about me, Marlene Dillon Empowerment Specialist, please visit mdillondesigns.com. There you can find more podcast episodes, you can read my inspirational blog, you can check out my online store of personalized gifts featuring the characters from my empowering children's book, I'm Proud to Be Natural Me. You can find parenting resources, including my online communication course, Healing Our Families, Healing the Parent-Child Relationship. Please follow and share if you found this podcast inspiring. Thank you and have an amazing day.